The Democratic Republic of the Congo possesses large reserves of copper, gold, diamonds, cobalt, uranium, coltan, oil, and more. It is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of natural resources. Despite this, it consistently ranks as one of the lowest countries on the Human Development Index and is home to one of the bloodiest conflicts in the world. So why is this? Well, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, natural resources have attracted corporations, vicious warlords, and corrupt governments. Pre-existing violence in the nation has been fueled by fight for control over these natural resources, and divisions have arose among ethnic groups in the country. This is due to what is known as the resource curse. The resource curse is a phenomenon in political science that holds that countries that are rich in natural resources tend to perform worse economically. It is important to note that while this applies to all natural resources, it is typically discussed in terms of oil. Countries endowed with a rich source of natural resources can struggle to make effective use of them and often end up with lower levels of economic development, less democracy, and can even suffer from more frequent civil wars. This is due to dependency, corruption, volatility of prices, and more. A country with strong natural resources will inevitably specialize in the production and exportation of this natural resource. The large revenues that they can collect mean less incentive for the economy to diversify into different industries. These nations will often devote too much capital and labor into a few resource industries rather than dispersing among sectors. The lack of diversification leads to dependency, in which the economy becomes reliant on the price and demand of this one commodity. However, oil prices are very volatile. They're influenced by OPEC, supply and demand, natural disasters, production costs, interest rates, and more. The price of oil is much less stable than other investments. Because of this volatility, countries which rely heavily on natural resources can experience boom and bust cycles. When resource prices are high, countries may take on large projects, such as airports, but when they crash, they're forced to make painful cuts. This was seen in Mexico, Nigeria, and Venezuela when revenues declined in the 80s and these countries all went into debt crisis. Governments often overborrow because they have improved creditworthiness when revenues are high. So if we look further at Mexico in the 80s, Mexico overborrowed. They were able to do this under pretenses to develop oil production. However, when prices crashed, they were unable to fulfill these debts and they went into financial crisis. Another way resource wealth can make an economy unstable is what is known as the Dutch disease. A large increase in natural resource revenue can cause inflation and exchange rate appreciation, which hurts other sectors of the economy. Additionally, resources move labor and capital away from the non-resource sector to the resource sector. The resource curse is also harmful in that natural resources breed corruption. This chart shows the control of corruption in resource-rich and non-resource-rich countries from a sample of 137 developing countries. Looking at this, it is clear that those without resources are more effective at controlling corruption than those that are resource-rich. But why are they corrupt? These governments are heavily dependent on resource rents rather than on direct taxes from citizens, so there's less accountability to the citizens themselves. The generation of large rents motivates political elites and powerful private groups to capture these rents for the benefit of a few over the common economic interest. The 8 top oil producers in Africa in 2011 were Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, Egypt, Libya, Sudan, the Republic of Congo, and Equatorial Guinea. All 8 of these countries had a negative score on the Control of Corruption Index by the World Bank. So if we are to compare two petroleum-rich countries, Nigeria and Norway, we see that Norway has managed its oil and gas reserves and revenues to benefit society and future generations, whereas Nigeria has experienced negative economic growth despite large reserves. Much of this can be explained by corruption, but perhaps there's something else. The resource curse is a popular theory in political science with a lot of evidence and merit, but there has recently been increasing literature on the potential effects of colonialism. If we look at the countries who experienced the resource curse, many of the nations who experienced the most detrimental effects were previously colonized. One study found that when given the same abundance of oil, countries with a higher institutional quality perform better than countries with less. Additionally, they found that colonized countries have weaker institutional quality than non-colonized countries. While both of these facts may seem somewhat obvious, this study helps understand why a country like Norway would be blessed, whereas Nigeria would be cursed. One of the main objectives of European colonialism was to expand the colonizing nation's economic base by implementing rent-seeking or resource extraction institutions in the colony. Post-colonial groups who benefited from this would have then been able to reproduce this system of rent-seeking in the developing nations. If we look and compare Botswana and Nigeria, both resource-dependent countries, we will find that while Nigeria has struggled to effectively use their resources, Botswana enjoys relative democratic achievements, political stability, low levels of corruption, and staggering economic growth. Botswana has not fallen into the same curse as many of the other resource-rich countries in Africa. When Botswana was colonized, it was taken on as a protectorate. The British were more interested in other countries not colonizing Botswana than they were Botswana itself, and thus they instituted a light-handed rule. This allowed traditional government structures to remain intact, thus keeping Botswana's elite accountable to the citizens. Whereas in Nigeria, the British destroyed the indigenous political structures and replaced them with their own. Because of this, the elites in Nigeria derived power from the colonizers rather than the citizens, making them more accountable to the colonizers over their citizens, setting the groundwork for weak institutions. So after comparing these two countries, it is clear that in order to truly address the resource curse, it is not enough to assume it is just a product of corrupt and greedy governments. To truly understand and mend this curse, we must incorporate issues of global power structures as well as historical contexts which have led weaker institutions in many resource-rich countries. Thank you.